Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is your host, Tarad Rashan, and you are now tuned into Taradcast. For all of the brand new listeners out there listening to our show for the very first time, welcome. And for all of you returning listeners coming back for another weekly dose of Taradcast greatness, welcome back. Now, here at Taradcast, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we are doing that, then we are doing our job. Now, today's episode is an episode that is a very, very personal one, and it definitely deals with subject matter that talks about the transition from a religious family and a religious upbringing to where I am now, being a non-religious person. So without further ado, today's episode topic is Foregoing Religion and a Religious Family. This is Taradcast. Let's get it. All right, welcome back to Taradcast. Again, I am your host, Tarad Rashan, and I just want to say that I am thankful that you all are here and that you all are listening. And I can't wait to go into this episode because I know this episode, for a lot of people, especially us millennials, it's very, very taboo in a sense. And there are a lot of things that we end up having to just kind of deal with and transition out of, especially if you are, just starting to look at life a little bit differently, look at the things you've learned a bit differently. And so we definitely want to dive into that and also just really start getting into the root of why that is and also what influences our decisions. And we also have a very special guest that I'm going to be introducing here in just a moment, who's going to engage in this conversation with us. And so before we introduce our guest today, we're going to take care of our housekeeping details. So if you would like to take our show with you on the go, just know that we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Podchaser, Castbox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and YouTube. You can also find Taradcast on Throne, which is a free live messaging application that allows us here at Taradcast to exclusively reach our listeners. Make sure to sign up if you'd like to keep the conversations going after the episode. If you're looking for natural oils for ultimate hydration and care for your hair and skin, hit up the Resilient Lotus at www.theresilientlotus.com, and you can also use the promo code TARADCAST to receive a discount on your purchase. If you are a lover of authentic chunky salsas and the most delicious birria tacos in Oklahoma City, make sure to reach out to Morenitas Salsitas at www.certain-t.com/Morenitas-Salsitas. And last but certainly not least, if you are in the market for an affordable graphic designer to create your next logo, flyer, album cover, or animated video, check out at Rose Graphism on Instagram. All this information, as always, will be in our episode notes. Now, our guest today is such a wonderful person. She is a fellow Putnam City High School graduate from 2008, Go Pirates, a spirited and free thinker, an open-minded conversationalist, an avid supporter and listener of our show, as well as one of our brand new Patreon subscribers, yay! And last but not least, one of my very, very good friends. I'd like to introduce you all to Erica. Erica, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
You know what?
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm glad you are. And this conversation is one that it was a topic that you brought up. And so I really feel like we can have a very good, open, honest dialogue regarding this subject matter. And so I'm very glad that you're here. I'm doing well, by the way. I didn't ignore your question. And I appreciate you for asking. And I really want to, just show some of those similarities similarities in both of our lives, because again, when you presented this topic to me, it was one that I was like, oh my God, we have to talk about this, because this is definitely something that I can definitely identify with, and I want to be able to just really dive into that with you. And so, let's go ahead and not keep the listeners waiting, and let's go ahead and jump into the subject matter. So, one of the things that we're going to be focusing on in our conversation today, as far as foregoing religion in a religious family, is the fact that traditionalism plays a very huge part in how we were brought up. And so Erica, I want to ask you, as far as tradition and your upbringing, like I said before, we share a lot of similarities in our journeys. And so for the listeners out there, tell us a little bit more about your ethnicity and your culture.
Okay. So I am a Mexican American. I consider myself a Chicana, meaning that I am American born, but I have my descendants is from Mexico. So my parents are Mexican, my grandparents, and everything. Growing up, of course, I was raised on very traditional Mexican values. I was also raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So the combination of those traditional values of my, being a Mexican and being a Jehovah's Witness, I feel like definitely meshed into one. And that was just kind of, how I was brought up.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because on a scale of 1 to you're going to hell if you even think of believing otherwise, how does religion play a part in the traditions that you've known and grown up with? Like how did you see that interweaved in your life, like your day-to-day life?
Well, I can definitely say that it was just, I think about growing up as, a Mexican girl, and, all of these values that I had in terms of morality and just, respect for elders and, things of that sort. And I feel like they were very much emboldened by the religion that I was in. So I was it was very strict, this is what it is, there's nothing different, this is how it's supposed to be. If you think anything different, there's something wrong with you, and that's just kind of how it was through my childhood and into my early teens.
Okay, so one of the interesting things that you said, and one of the things that we oftentimes tend to think about, is the concept of morality. And morality is, in a way, it's as far as what I've been able to see, it's something that gives people a sort of compass as far as showing people the right way to make a decision or the right way to, get a desired outcome. But one of the things that I have learned about morality is that for the people that need that type of compass, religion, and, regardless of what religion you believe in or practice, religion tends to give its audience a specific way to navigate their life, a specific way to think about the world and to think about people. And so with that being said, because you also said about just it affecting your childhood and going into your early teens. And so I wanted to ask you, do you believe in indoctrination? And if you do, what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely do believe in it. As far as what my thoughts are, I feel like I'm very critical about it. As having been in a religion that I feel like was very indoctrinating, I kind of frown upon it because, if you look up, a word that's a synonym for indoctrination, one of the words is actually brainwash. And so I think about As a child and growing up with all of these very strict rules and guidelines that had to do with religion, I definitely feel like it was a form of brainwash to just kind of keep me in line to what was expected of me, not just from the religion, but from my family, my immediate family, as well as my extended family.
Okay. And you know what? See, now you make me wish I would have brought my little thesaurus just so I could, look up the word indoctrination to see the synonym brainwashing. But at the same time, there are, and one of the things I like to try and think about is the fact that, there are many people in many different situations who end up like turning to religion as a way to get themselves on the straight and narrow, because the atmosphere that surrounds religion. And for me, I didn't grow up Jehovah's Witness, but I grew up Church of Christ. And Church of Christ is technically considered non-denominational, but at the same time, we were also given the rhetoric that we are the one true church. We are, the chosen ones. We are going to be the first ones to inherit heavenly promises first and things like that. And as a matter of fact, I remember hearing one of my it was a preacher who made this joke saying that there was a tour being given in heaven, and it was showing the different denominations to the people who would potentially be in heaven. And so when they got to the Church of Christ people, they said, you have to be really, really quiet because they think they're the only ones here. And so I was like, wow, that joke really stood out to me, because I was like, but that has a lot to do with what we say and what we believed back when I was in it. And so, at the same time, I do believe that, churches do have their purpose as far as being able to, rehabilitate, people to get them into making the best decisions if they weren't able to make them for themselves. But at the same time, I also believe in the fact that, and I say this a lot, it's one of my personal philosophies, but I feel like every person in the world, it doesn't matter who you are, you hold at least one truth that somebody can learn from. And so, just thinking about the because I know, as far as what I know about Jehovah's Witnesses, it's like I know that people who believe and who subscribe to that religious practice is, from what I've seen, is very hardcore, and it involves a lot of action, a lot of evangelism, people going, door to door knocking and, things like that. And so, I think about that and I'm just like, man, it is, the practices that are a part of being a part of that particular religious belief, it's a lot that goes into it. But I wanted to go back and also just touch on morality. And so, as far as your particular standpoint, what were some of the moral values that being Jehovah's Witness taught you, or were instilled in you, or enforced by your family? What were some of those things that for you growing up, what were some of those moral values for you being a Jehovah's Witness?
Right. So definitely one of the biggest moral values was the significance in my virginity. As far as having sex out of wedlock, it was a big no-no.
Right.
Not even just religiously, but culturally, it's one of those things that I had to do. So I kind of had to from both ways, and I can definitely say that was one of the biggest things. And I can say that because whenever I did lose my virginity, I was 16, and I had consequences from the church because of it. So
wow.
It's just one of those things that I wouldn't have thought that. And on the other side, I also had consequences from my father. And my father's not a Jehovah's Witness. My mother is. So it was just very, on both sides. So I kind of got hit with it. And I can honestly say that that's just one of those really like watching porn.
Mm-hmm.
Do not, no.
Yeah.
It's something that you don't do.
I know.
Masturbating.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to masturbate.
Right. Can't touch yourself. Yeah, I know.
And these are things that not only were we told that we shouldn't do them,
Mm-hmm.
it was just something that people just didn't want to talk about.
Right.
It was just like, you just don't do it, and that's just what it is.
Right.
And you just kind of have to deal with that. And I understand the aspect of having those values or those guidelines there for people who might struggle
Mm-hmm.
with certain things. Because like you said, I definitely do agree that some people kind of do need that moral compass to stay in the straight and narrow.
Right.
And I definitely do agree with that. I have one of my best friends. She is in rehab, and one of the things that has brought her a lot of healing
Mm-hmm.
is the church.
Mm-hmm.
And because to her, she's always needed that sense of community and being able to speak to people who,
Right.
are either struggling with the same thing or have gone to Christ to be able to heal themselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
definitely do believe that there is healing power in that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't condone that at all,
Right.
Especially as an adult when, you've gone through certain traumas in life, and, if you revert back to going to Christ or back to your spirituality, and that helps you to become a better person and whole in general, I feel like that's definitely a good thing.
Right.
But as far as, when it came to these moral values, I felt like it was just a lot of don't do's.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
Right.
We don't really have to explain to you why you shouldn't do it, but just know it's not right. The
Right.
Bible says it's not right, so don't do it, and you just kind of have to take, their word for it, and I'll just be like, no, okay.
No, and to be honest, because what you said, as far as just going back to the point of, you said that your father wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, but your mother was. That pattern is also in my family too, where it's mostly the women who are the most religious and the men who are the least. Because my grandfather, my grandmother was, just, a holy servant of the Lord. And my grandfather wasn't, and in some essence, my parents, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's the same, but I do see similarities. I mean, my mother is very, very heavy into Christianity, and my dad is too, but to a lesser extent. And so there's a lot more stuff I can get away with when it comes to talking to my dad than I can my mom. So but at the same time, I've also noticed that being a very, very common pattern in most religious families, unless you're like a preacher's kid or something, because at that point it's like, well, you're just in it there, but at the same time, I also know that preachers' kids can be the most wild too, but that's another story for another podcast. But at the same time, that is something that I've also noticed, because when it comes to the Bible, there is a lot more rules and restrictions placed on women, and there's a lot more guidelines as far as what it means to be a faithful and devout woman of God. And when it comes to that, for me, I've grown to believe that the Bible, because it was written by men, that there are ways of thinking, there are ideologies that, when looked at now, of course, they are very outdated. The way that they look at women, the way that they feel about women, the way that they feel like they need to control women or direct women in a certain way. I feel like those things have now become obsolete. And so when you were talking about the things that were like the big no-nos, especially being a woman, because just thinking about the idea of being a pure and virtuous woman, that is an idea that is, simply put, based on preparing yourself for a man and not preparing yourself for life. And again, one of the things I've also realized is that I'm like, all right, I know there are STDs and STIs and all that stuff out there. So it's like, in many ways, a lot of these things, they do make sense as far as not being frivolous with your body, and having responsibility for your actions, especially sexually. But at the same time, it's like, I wish that we had the ability to just teach responsibility. Because again, you said that for you lost your virginity at 16, and it's not because, actually, I don't know. I don't want to assume that you were rebelling or anything like that. You can tell us how that happened, but at the same time, as we grow up, there is no way to control what happens inside of our bodies naturally.
Right.
There is no amount of Bible beating that can keep you from not being interested in the opposite sex or the same sex, or just being interested in a way to where you want to explore physical intimacy.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that for me, even me, that I struggled with as a young Christian, because for me, I didn't lose my virginity until I was like 22, 23, because I was trying to be like the picture perfect model, I'm going straight to heaven Christian boy.
Right.
And because of that, it did not mean that I didn't mess around.
Right.
I just didn't put this inside of that. and so for me, but at the same time, I was still watching porn, late night HBO, Showtime. Exactly. It's like, if I had Cartoon Network set as the last channel on my TV remote, so that way when I was turning on the HBO and watching real sex and the L word, and I heard my mom or dad walk by, I could just hit that button and go right back to Cartoon Network. But I figured they already knew.
Oh yeah.
I figured they already knew.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think about myself. I'm like, I wasn't any different. I had the same hormones. I had the same thoughts. Like I was sitting over here like drawing pictures of like anime girls with, like big boobs and stuff like that. like I need an outlet. Right. And that's the thing. It's like one of the things that I've seen religion not do is give the subject of sexuality and maturity a healthy outlet for conversations to happen.
Right. See, I'm gonna touch on that point really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So in the Jehovah's Witness organization, sexuality, sex out of wedlock and everything is one of the very big no-nos. And for example, if you are a baptized Jehovah's Witness and you have sex out of wedlock, or you cheat on your spouse, which, you're having sex with someone that's not your spouse.
Right.
One of the most common punishments is disfellowship. So disfellowship means that all of your privileges get taken away. So you're not allowed to door-to-door preach. You're not allowed to make presentations in front of the congregation. You're not allowed to comment during sermons. And you are basically shunned. You're not allowed to go to any social events that have to do with the church. Everyone that's in the congregation is basically told that they are not allowed to speak to you. A lot of people who are disfellowshipped, they either get to a meeting after like a sermon has already started, and they usually leave beforehand. That way they don't say hello and goodbye to everyone. Right. And they also encourage your own family to shun you. Really? And I have a cousin who, I want to say I was maybe like 10. I might have been younger, maybe 8. He was the first person that I remember who was disfellowshipped. And I honestly don't really remember why. I just remember that I didn't really care because he was my cousin. And I was like,
it's your family.
He's my family, And I just remember him disappearing. Really? And I didn't see him from the time that I was 8 or 10. The next time that I saw him was literally 3 years ago.
Really?
And my family completely cut him out. And he has one brother that talks to him. The rest of his siblings do not talk to him. His parents talk to him kind of in situations where they have to. And even then, it's very weird interactions that they do have, and it's very much headbutting.
Right.
But I say that to say that this punishment is kind of seen as a way to coerce you into repentance, because to them, they feel like it'll make you realize what you're missing,
right? And
you will have a level of repentance that will get you, reinstated back into the church.
Wow.
The thing about that is that I understand that for a lot of people that does work. Saying like, you know what, I miss being around my brothers and sisters. I miss being around the congregation. I miss the privileges that I had before, and I want to get right, and I want to go back to the congregation. And I've also noticed that a lot of these people also do it just as a form of getting back in the church's good grace, but don't do it genuinely.
I see.
So that definitely, that's just one of those things, again, like you were talking about, basically the idea of us having to suppress our sexuality, like we're not allowed to act on it or, question why it's there, because I remember before I lost my virginity, and I would ask my mom, like, why am I not allowed to have sex? And she would just be like, well, the Bible says, and I'd be like, okay, but and she'd be like, God says that it's wrong for you to do it out of wedlock. You have to be married. And I'm like, okay, but God also gave me these impulses.
Exactly.
To want
They're
to
natural.
have sex.
Right.
So, and I feel like I'm not even allowed to masturbate or watch porn.
Like,
so what am I supposed to do to kind of get rid of this urge that God has given me? And I remember just being so frustrated because these are conversations that people did not want to have with me. Like, they were like, no, you just don't do it, and that's just what it is. And I'd be like, but look, okay, I'm 15, I'm 14, whatever. I have these thoughts, and I'm trying to articulate them to you so you can kind of help me through what it is I'm going through.
Yeah, it's like people out here looking kind of good. I'm starting to look at them a little bit different. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
See, the reason that I lost my virginity is because I didn't plan it, and it was just one of those things that I was just curious, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and it just kind of happened, and I remember after it happened, I felt this great deal of shame. And I know that feeling. And I remember all of these teachings that were instilled in me since I was a child came back to me, about God's wrath and about
the hellfire and brimstone, all of that, fornication, you're going straight to Satan.
Exactly. And all of these things just came to me, and I was terrified. I was terrified. One, because I had done it, and two, I was terrified of my parents finding out. Because I was like, oh my God, I already know. They've already told me that I shouldn't be doing this, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I feel like that was a horrible feeling. I remember that, and I remember thinking, not then, but once I got older, I don't ever want to have my children feel that way. I don't ever want my children to feel shame for being human. Yeah.
I mean, because shame and guilt and fear are three of the things that I have realized go into like formulating and trying to guide a child into staying in religion, because again, the word sex out of wedlock or fornication, these evil sounding words that make it sound so unappealing, are designed to make it seem like there is this crazy consequence. And to be honest, yes, there's a potential to create a child. There's a potential to potentially get an STD or an STI. I understand that. But at the same time, it's just it is also a very natural act, and none of us would be here if that act had not occurred, whether it was, in a sanctified marriage or out of wedlock. So, the fact is, it's going to happen. So, to me, I feel like what really needs to happen is we need to create a healthy conversation regarding sex, because it's beautiful, and it feels good, but at the same time, it's like a lot of people, they think of that act as something that, a lot of people are not yet ready for, which I do understand. Right. But at the same time, why don't we also prepare our children? We prepare our teens, for what is inevitably going to happen at some point, as opposed to keeping it behind this locked door. Because if it's locked, we're going to try and figure out a way to try and like break the lock and, look inside there, because I'm like, there might be some magazines and videos and stuff up there. I'm like, wait a minute, there might be a little, fine little girl over there or something like that. Like, wait a minute, hold on. Oh, she was behind this door this whole time? Right. Oh, she looking at me, calling me handsome? Oh, okay. All right. But I feel you. And just the fact that, when you were talking about for the health and wellness of even your own children, and being able to create a conversation, a dialogue that allows them to see sex in a healthy way, as opposed to the way that you were taught to see it. That's going to be something that creates a new generation who looks at it differently. Because ultimately it starts with us. Right. Because again, we can't necessarily control what happens whenever they leave home, but at least we can do everything we can to make them prepared. Right. We can give them the tools that they need to be safe. Exactly. And to be, and I definitely do agree with that. I have a sister, she's 14. And I can definitely say that her upbringing is a lot different than mine. My mom is still a Jehovah's Witness, and she's still my sister goes to meetings with her. She does all of that. My sister's not baptized. I was never baptized either. But I have noticed that, and I'm pretty sure a lot of it has to do with me and my brother, and us, being older, and us, especially me, having these conversations with her, because my mom never had these conversations with me. She never talked about safe sex. She talked about no sex. Right. It's easier. It's easier to just say no sex. Like, just don't do it. You don't have to worry about anything. Just don't do it. She never really gave me the tools to be able to be prepared once it did happen. And I was very much misinformed. And there was a lot of things that I was told that were not correct, and with my sister, I've been trying to kind of have conversations with her to, of course, I've talked to my mom about it, and I'm like, look, I understand that this is how you did it with me and my brother, but things are very different with social media, and but when I was 14, I didn't have a phone. Right. I didn't have Twitter. I didn't have TikTok. I didn't have Facebook. You sound old as hell right now. We didn't have none of this. I didn't have any of that. Yeah. So my temptations were very limited to people that I went to school with, people that I worked with. Right. It was very limited versus my sister and the teens of this age have this vast, world of people that can get a hold of them. Yeah, everybody's available. Right. Everyone is available, and everyone is willing to be that person to, So with my sister, I've made it a point to educate her. And my mom still tells her, like, don't have sex at a wedlock. You're not supposed to do it. And I tell my sister, like, I understand where mom's coming from, because this is what she ingrained in me when I was younger, and my brother. But it's not realistic. And I'm like, and I would rather you have the tools to be informed and protect yourself,
and, make smart decisions. Hopefully this conversation I have with you will make you make a smarter decision.
Right.
If you do decide that you do want to have sex, you'll do it in a way that is responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do, And I feel like my sister is very different, and I feel like she has definitely picked up these cues that, she shouldn't be expected to not have sex at a wedlock, but that she should be responsible. And I also want her to feel comfortable to come talk to me if it is going to happen, or if it has happened. I want her to be able to come talk to me and have a very sincere conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, versus what I had when I was younger, it was fear. It was fear, and it was just a lot of, all the bad things that are going to happen to you. And, it was just a level of, it's crazy to think that at 14, my family's telling me, that I should get baptized and all of these things. And, it would blow my mind. So you want me as a 14, 15-year-old to make this, lifelong commitment to God, at the same time asking me to have, the will to not have sex.
Yeah.
And that would always blow my mind.
Yeah.
Because you don't think I'm grown enough to have sex, but I'm grown enough to make this eternal commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the logic. That's the logic.
And that always blew my mind. Yeah. Always.
No, and that's the thing. It's just I get it. I get it. And with that being said, y'all, we're going to touch more on this conversation here in just a few moments. We're going to take our first break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the journey away from religion and tradition, because I definitely want to hear what you have to say about what that journey looked like for you. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about what some of those experiences really showed you. And so with that being said, y'all, I hope you have your water or your wine or your soda close by. Go ahead and take a drink, and we will be right back. This is Taradcast. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of Taradcast, Tarad Rashan, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest Taradcast thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the Taradcast Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/Taradcast. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support. A $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks, so if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support Taradcast this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/Taradcast. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the Taradcast podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite Taradcast streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts, and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at taradcast@CRTN-T.com. That's taradcast@CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. All right, all right, all right, y'all. Welcome back to Tarodcast. Again, I'm your host, Tarod Rashawn, and we are joined today by Erica, and we are talking about foregoing religion in a religious family. And so, Erica, before we went on break, we told our audience that we're going to be talking about the journey away from religion and tradition. And so, what I'd like to know is, around what age did you start to make your transition away from religion, and was there any specific influence or situation that jump started that movement for you?
So I can say I probably started having like my doubts when I was maybe around 14. And this was just mostly because, like I said, I started coming into like my sexuality and just
your womanhood.
Right, you know. So it definitely made me see things very differently. There was definitely an instance that did kind of push me to just kind of be like, you know what, I feel, you know what, this isn't really what I want. Like I said, when I was 16, I lost my virginity. And I'm not baptized, so, you know, I couldn't get disfellowshipped. But when my parents found out that I was no longer a virgin, my mom took me to go speak to the elders. And this process of speaking to the elders was definitely, I want to say traumatizing, but it was very intense.
I can imagine.
Because I remember, you know, my mom found out that I wasn't a virgin, and she was like, you know what, we're going to go talk to the elders, and, you know, you're going to get your punishment, basically, is what's going to happen. And I remember being terrified. And I just remember I was in a room with my mom and 4 elders of the congregation. And basically, it was just a line of questions of who was this person? Is this someone that we need to speak to? How many times did it happen? When did it happen? You know, it was just a very intense and, you know, intense line of questioning that me, one, I'm already afraid because I am in trouble. Right. You know, and 2, this is just putting more fear in me. Right. And I remember walking out of that meeting feeling very defeated. And I was like, you know what, that's not a feeling that I like. And to me, I also felt like, why are these grown men asking me about what I just did? Yeah. You know, sexually with someone else. I'm 16. You know, like, I didn't feel like I needed to kind of explain myself to anyone but my parents. You know, and even to my mom, I didn't necessarily go into a lot of detail with, you know, but the main point was I was no longer a virgin. Right. You know, my father found out, didn't speak to me for 3 months, but that's a different story. But that instance definitely made me realize that I didn't really want to be a part of an organization that would make me feel like I was less for having human, not just emotions, but human feelings towards another person. Right. So that definitely, I was like, oh no, I don't think this is what I want. You know, like, am I gonna have to come talk to them every time I have sex? Right. Or, like, what's gonna happen?
Like, you were basically interrogated by grown men. And see, and that's the thing, because for me, this is one thing that I've learned, you know, just growing up. Men, in especially in a religious sense, you know, men are always going to be at the top of the totem pole. Right. You know, whereas women are supposed to be the helpmates, or they're supposed to be the wives, or, you know, just the lesser of the two. But I would, you know, as far as this is concerned, I would think that it would be more, and this also just speaks to the level of disrespect that religion has for women in general. But I would think that, you know, with you being a young woman, your mother being a grown woman, that it would be more feasible and understandable to be around women. Right. You know, to talk about those things, because you all understand you all's bodies and feelings and emotions, whereas men you know, regardless of just being put in this position of authority, you know, all we can do is point fingers, because we don't necessarily understand, you know, everything that happens in a woman's body, but yet we want to try and police that. You know, and I've noticed that it's a lot worse in, you know, just the religious scene, because I remember there was this one young lady at my church. I remember she got pregnant, and I didn't see her for a long time. I grew up with this little girl. She just disappeared.
Right.
You know, and I remember after she had the baby, she started kind of like coming, but it wasn't like as frequent. You know, and one of the things that really always bothered me was the fact that, you know, if you go out and you do have sex, and in your case, you know, you didn't get pregnant, you just had sex, you know, but if you have sex, if you have a baby, whatever, it's like the first thing that a lot of people want to do is to vilify and villainize you and make you feel like you're the worst person. You know, it's like it's they're not leading with love. They're not leading with trying to understand, because I feel like a lot of adults tend to forget that they were also kids, you know, and they also had and felt a lot of the same things. And so there are probably things that even some of those grown men did that, you know, they can't even empathize, you know, first of all, because they're men. You know, most men can't empathize with a woman in general, because a lot of us aren't emotionally ready for that, right. You know, and we're not vulnerable enough either. And so, you know, just in thinking about that, you know, a lot of men are not able to really connect in that way. And then, you know, when you add the different pieces of religion onto it, you know, you want to be like the authority. You want to, you know, feel like you are doing, you know, God's work, doing Jehovah's work, you know, right. Doing, you know, serving the will of Jesus or whomever, you know, and what you're really doing is you're pushing people away because you're not leading with love.
Right.
You know?
And let me interject there a little bit, because, you know, a lot of it definitely has to do with the church. And for me specifically, it also had a cultural side of it.
Okay.
Being from the Latin community, you know, women are seen as less in general, you know, and this is a conversation that a lot of people don't like to have, but it's very much true. And I don't know what it is, but a lot of these men have a huge problem with a woman like owning their own body and sexuality. You know, because I know, for example, a lot of the elders that were in the room whenever I was questioned were married, you know, and their wives were very, in a sense, pure. You know, like they were seen as as a woman who, if there was a social event, would put it together. You know, if they were going door to door preaching, they were the ones that were driving everyone to, you know, to the block that they're supposed to be preaching at. Right. You know, they were kind of, you know, the head of making sure that all of these women are kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, so, and I felt like, you know, from the fact that it was just kind of embarrassing having to tell these grown men what I had just done, it was just, I just felt like I was being harshly judged, not even on the religious side, but as a woman being judged by these grown men because I dared to do something that, one, is not okay in God's eyes, but two, I shouldn't be doing because I am not married. And this is something that, you know, a Hispanic woman is supposed to be doing. She's not supposed to go out and have sex and, you know, do all these things. You know, she's supposed to have sex with her husband one night a week. You know, missionary. Gotta make sure she gets pregnant, you know, within the first year of marriage. You know what I mean? Like, there's just all of these things that, you know, like I said, and me being a Latin woman, it definitely affected me a lot more, you know, because I think about when I lost my virginity, and I think about the repercussions that I had, and I lost my privileges, you know. And when I say privileges, I wasn't allowed to go door to door preaching.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to have presentations in front of the congregation. Right. I wasn't baptized, so I didn't get this fellowship, but all of my privileges were revoked. And I was basically told, if you want to get these privileges back, this is what you have to do. And I was just kind of like, no, I'm not doing that. You know, and when my brother lost his virginity, there was no conversation that was had with the elders.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. He was not dragged into this room with these grown men to have a conversation about what happened. You know, like, it just didn't happen. And like I said, it was also, you know, religiously, the brunt of what happened to me and what happened to my brother was very different. And also family-wise. It was very, very different. I remember when my father found out I wasn't a virgin, he didn't speak to me for 3 months. Yeah. He made my mom take all the pictures of me down. What? He didn't even want to look at pictures of me. It was insane. And around this time, I guess my brother had lost his virginity too, and my father found out, and I just remember my dad telling him, well, make sure you're using protection. And I was like,
oh, so you couldn't get the same talk. You had to have whole pictures taken down and basically your presence wiped away from the house. Yeah. And see, and that's the double standard. And I know, and like you said earlier, you know, he wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, but culturally, yes, you know, and honestly, you know, because I do see that happen a lot, even just in the Black community as well. And the way that we look at our women and the way that we don't value our women, but yet we want to give our women so much responsibility and we want them to be the backbone of everything. But yet when it comes to, like you were saying before, a woman owning her body, a Black woman owning her body, like Meg the Stallion, you know, owning her body, it's like we completely just go at their throats. And we say everything that we can to discount who they are, as opposed to, and this is coming from Black men, and we do everything we can to discount who they are, failing to realize that there is nothing wrong with owning your sexuality. We as men are just so used to it that when a woman is doing it, we don't know how to respond, you know, because now it's like a challenge of our masculinity. And a lot of men don't know how to handle that, you know? And so I can only imagine that, you know, as far as what you were saying regarding your father, you know, there were a lot of things that, you know, again, it's, you know, especially me being a father, it's like, you know, I know that at some point my daughter is going to have sex. It's just going to happen. Right. But as far as how I want to raise her, I want her to be prepared. I want her to be fully comfortable with who she is. I want her to know that she has her own power, you know, and that she does not have to do anything she does not want to do, right? You know, and if anything happens, I'm only one call away. I'll get the shotty, I'll get the AK, I'll get the knife, the grenades, all that. And we gonna 187 on somebody's block. But, you know, I want her to know that, you know, I do trust her to be responsible, right? You know, because that's the main thing. It's responsibility. It shouldn't be, oh, why did you do this before this time? It's like, no, when it happened, do you feel like you were responsible when it happened? And if you do, tell me what that felt like for you. And if you didn't feel responsible, tell me what that feels like. Okay. So that way we can at least try and guide you in the right direction, you know? But I mean, it's just I don't know, like, because culturally it's just like, again, I do find a lot of similarities in how a lot of fathers talk to or talk at their daughters whenever they find out about, you know, sexual experiences and things like that, you know, religious or not. And the way that a lot of us look at our daughters, it's like we don't see them as people, you know? And so because of that, we tend to want to, like, you know, coddle them and shove them into a closet, you know, until they're like 26,
right.
you know, and then send them out into the world. I'm like, nah, the world is already here, and it's a lot closer now than it's ever been, because like you were saying earlier, you know, we didn't have the Twitters, and we didn't have the Facebooks and all that. You know, when we were in high school, we just had, like, we were just getting into MySpace.
Right.
You know, like, we all had the background and the friends list with the top 8. You know, like, we had all that. Like, I remember being in computer class trying to get on them little proxy websites so I could edit my MySpace page.
Right, I want to get the right song.
Exactly.
That's what I'm worried about.
Exactly. Look, had the Gangsta Bugs Bunny as the background, like, all of that. Like, I remember that. Like, you know, that was our introduction. And so it's like, now, you know, there's a lot more access to a lot more people now. And so the conversation, I feel, also has to shift, especially in the religious sense, because it's you know, it's not the same.
Right.
And so, you know, just going back to that transition out of religion, I wanted to know and hear from you, like, you know, when you really started to gradually come out, like, of religion, what were some of the things or the practices or the beliefs that you started to, like, let go of as you made that transition out?
So I would say one of the first things that I kind of let go of was going to meetings. So back at that time, we were having meetings 3 times a week. So it would be like Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. And it was also around the time that I started working.
Okay.
So work was a good excuse for me to not be attending these meetings.
I hear you.
Not saying that I purposely was like, please schedule me on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. But I definitely got out of the practice of going to meetings once I started working and all of that.
Okay.
And that was definitely one of the things that I gradually started not doing. You know, they also have assemblies, yearly assemblies, about 3 or 4 a year
Okay.
that they do. Conventions of 2 or 3 days. Some are just 1 day. It just depends on the type of convention that it is. But I stopped attending those. You know, a lot of them were out of town. You know, they would be in Dallas or whatever, Denton.
Okay.
And I would stop attending. I remember, I think the last time that I actually attended an assembly was when I was 16. And I would just find excuses not to go. And that's definitely one of the things that I kind of gradually went off of. Also, I gradually started not attending social events that were planned by you know, the people who were in the congregation.
Right.
You know, like anniversaries, weddings, things like that. I would just, again, not really be attending. You know, that was just my way of kind of distancing myself from, you know, these people. And but it was definitely, you know, like, even, and then it kind of got to the point to where I was only going to it's around Easter. I don't know how to say it in English, but in Spanish is conmemoración, where you pass around the plate of bread. You know, this is Jesus's body.
Oh, communion?
Not
Easter.
Communion. I always forget the name. Like I said, in English, I never remember the name. But, and you pass around the wine. You know, this is Jesus's blood.
Yeah.
And it's a whole sermon that they do, and they do it just once a year, and it's around Easter time. And I got to the point to where I was only going to that.
Okay.
And then I kind of got to the point to where I just wasn't going at all. But it was definitely a gradual, just kind of cutting back on these, you know, on these things and interactions with the brothers and sisters in the congregation. It was I just basically just started excluding myself from certain events to just kind of, I guess you could say, weaning myself off of, you know, because a lot of these interactions were, why haven't I seen you at the meetings? Why haven't you been preaching? Why aren't you baptized yet? You know, it was a lot of that, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this. So let me just wean myself off of this. That way I don't have to answer any questions.
Right.
Just do my own thing, and, you know, I'm here, but from far. You know, you guys can pick up my mom for service. I'll be like, hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, have fun.
You know, go back into the house.
No, I understand. I understand. And, you know, just for a process like that, you know, again, you know, when you experience certain things, and one of the things that I tend to think about a lot, you know, when I think about my former life being a Christian, is the fact that, you know, we are here amongst one another, you know, and so one of the things that a lot of people like to throw out is, you know, God sees, or God hears, or God knows,
right,
and things like that, but it's us. It's everybody here that we're interacting with.
right.
You know, the people that we can see and feel and, you know, just experience. And so my question is, it's like, you know, how do we really know that somebody is the like God ordained authority?
Right.
Because again, you know, God himself is not coming down and putting his hand over somebody's head saying, I appoint this person to be this. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. I mean,
right.
you know, in our scriptures, in our texts, you know, those things happen. But again, it's like, you know, we don't have access to any of that if it actually happened.
Right.
And so it's like, you know, for you know, like, and I said this on a Facebook status one time that inspired a lot of conversation, but I was like, it feels like, you know, when it comes to God, he's just chilling in the cut, just like watching everything,
yeah.
you know, sipping on some drink and like, all right, y'all handle this.
Y'all figure it out.
Right. And so it's like, you know, I can definitely understand, you know, as you know, with the experience that you had with people who are supposed to have been ordained by Jehovah himself,
right.
you know, to direct and to lead and to shepherd and to experience what you experience, how that could also contribute to you stepping away from your beliefs and practices. And so one of the things that I also want to ask is, as you were, you know, coming out of it, what were some of the things that you began to notice about religion and tradition as well as people? Because, you know, now you're starting to look from, you know, be on the outside looking in. So like, what were some of those things that you were able to observe about not only religion and tradition, but people?
Right. Definitely one of the biggest things that I did notice was the hypocrisy in the people that are part of, not all, you know, of course, there's always exceptions, but the hypocrisy that came with people that were in the truth, you know, for Jehovah's Witnesses,
right?
They say that, you know, it's the truth. You know, it's just a matter of finding out elders are having affairs, finding out elders' wives are having affairs.
Oh yeah.
You know, finding out that, you know, elders' kids are running off and getting married and to someone that's not in the truth, you know. And, you know, being in the actual, you know, organization, I felt like I was very blind to a lot of these things. Because one, a lot of the times it was very hush.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I was also I just wasn't told, you know, and mostly because I was like, okay, it's not really my business, you know, I don't care. But, you know, being out of the organization and being around people who have also been out of the organization and just, you know, we find certain things out and we're like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
The elder did what? And it's just like, you mean the same person who was in the room with me, because I had sex at 16, just went and hired a hooker and you know, took
seems like missionary wasn't enough.
You know, so that was one of the biggest things that I did notice. Was the hypocrisy in people just in general, you know, and I felt like, and this is something that even my mom has told me. She's told me, you know, because she is still a Jehovah's Witness, I have definitely opened up her eyes a lot to seeing things a little bit differently. She's still very devout Jehovah's Witness, but one of the things that she did always tell me was, don't stay in the truth if you're not doing it genuinely and purely out of the goodness of your heart.
Right.
You know, she's like, don't do it because we're telling you to do it. Don't do it because the elders are telling you to do it. Do it because you feel like that's what you want to do and that's what fulfills you. You know, and
may I interject real quick?
Yeah.
Because honestly, in the religion that I was in, Church of Christ, I was baptized at 12. You know, again, an age where, you know, we like to talk about age of accountability and things like that. I was baptized at 12, so I'm a preteen. And, you know, it's the same thing. They say not to do it because of us, but what they don't realize is that we are doing it because of you. We want your acceptance.
Right.
We want you to be proud of us. We want to feel like we're making this important step. And it's not that we're not genuine about it, but like the parental influence is very strong.
Very. And not only that, because I remember when my mom never pressured me and my brother to get baptized.
Okay.
And mostly it was because, you know, her side of the family is not Jehovah's Witness. She's the only Jehovah's Witness in her family.
Okay.
And my father's the only person that's not a Jehovah's Witness in his family. So whenever they got married, they got my mom into it, and my dad was just never part of it.
I see.
You know, so she grew up around her Catholic family.
Okay.
So her viewpoints about certain things are a little bit different. Of course, a lot of the things that were instilled in me were very cultural, with a lot of backing of the religion. But she never told me and my brother, you guys need to get baptized. When are you guys going to get baptized? When is this going to happen? But I do remember one of my uncles is an elder to this day.
Okay.
My dad's only brother. And he would always question us. Why aren't you baptized yet? When are you getting baptized? You know, what's happening? Why isn't it happening? You know, and my brother also is not baptized. And I remember having a conversation with my brother, and, you know, many conversations about how we didn't feel it was right. We're 14, 16 years old. We're like, we don't feel like it's right that we make this lifelong decision, you know, just because we're being told that we need to do it. And I feel like it might have been something completely different if my mom would have actually been down our throats about it. But because she wasn't, and she realized that we needed to make our own decision, we never made that decision, you know. But we definitely were pressured by our grandparents, our uncles, or aunts, you know.
Right.
All of my cousins are basically baptized. You know, my cousin he's a month older than me, you know, and they try to get us to get baptized together. And they were like, well, you know, Daniel's getting baptized, you know, so what about you? And I think he was like 13, 14 when he got baptized as well. And I remember telling my mom, like, Mom, I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it. You know, and my mom was just kind of like, yeah, you don't have to do it. You know, you shouldn't be, you know, I don't want to feel like you're forced to do it. Of course, my mom to this day tells us, you know, I would love it for you guys to be in the truth. I would love it. You know, but you're grown, and I can't tell you what it is that you need to do. And at the end of the day, you're my kids, and I love you, and I'm going to accept you, regardless of whether you are in the truth or not. You know, so I feel like
that's a very progressive thought.
It really is, you know, and I commend my mom greatly to this day, because I have conversations with her that I probably shouldn't be having with her. You know, but it came from a lot of me growing up, being a part of this organization, and just seeing things very differently and bringing it to her and bouncing it off of her and seeing what I got back. Yeah. You know, and at first it was a lot of, well, you shouldn't ask that, or, you know, you should just go by faith, or you should just believe that that's just what it is. And, you know, and then once I got older and I started coming with, like, harder questions, you know, she was kind of like, you know what? Maybe you might have a point. Yeah. You know, maybe, you know, now I would tell her, like, Mom, a lot of the people that you go to meetings with are so hypocritical. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. And she's like, no. She's like, I do. She's like, I do understand. And she's like, but I'm not going to meetings for these people. She's like, I'm going to these meetings for me. And I'm like, well, you know what? I definitely understand that you're something that you're doing for you.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that she knows that me and my brother don't attend because it's something that we just don't want to be a part of.
Right.
And we've never demonized her. Like, we don't understand why you're in this religion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would you be around these hypocrites? Like, we've never done that because, again, we do understand that some people do need that guidance.
Of
like
course.
we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having that guidance to just kind of stay in the straight and narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like my mom is one of those people who definitely thrives, you know, being part of the organization.
Yeah.
So I would never take that away from her. But I don't know, it's just, like I said, the biggest thing is the hypocrisy that I noticed in people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I still see. And I've been out of the truth for, 15 years already?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I still hear things.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I
know.
I hear it all the time, and I'm just like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
And that's the thing, because again, like I was saying before, we're still dealing with people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just I do appreciate, and I can definitely support people who, when it comes to their faith and their belief, they do it because to them it is genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel that they have their purpose aligned with their faith. And so I'm just like, I can support that. And if that gives you everything that you need to go about this life and be the best person you can be, then please, by all means. But at the same time, I'm also not going to deny the fact that you just talked about regarding a lot of the hypocrisy in people, and a lot of the things that you see that are coming from these people that you're supposed to look up to, or these people that you're sitting in the pews with, or and you're seeing the fact that they are not, for the lack of a better phrase, practicing what they preach.
Right.
And so, again, it's like, I've seen those types of scandals. I've seen, even with the preacher that I had, may he rest in peace. But at the same time, it's like, I remember the scandal that happened. And I was just like, that was one of the things that like rocked me to my core, because I was just like, oh my God, he's human too.
Right.
And it's just like, wow. And another thing, it's like, you were talking about, the things that were happening, even with like the elders and whatnot. One of the things that I have grown to realize is that there are a lot of things that are kept from the general church or congregation. The meetings that happen behind closed doors, the things that we're not a part of.
Right.
When we come, to the different services, like, like for us, Wednesday night service, or like, for you, the Tuesday, Thursday, those things. Like when we come, there are things happening all throughout the week, decisions being made, and directions that are being taken that none of us know anything about, because we're not in those meetings, because it's the elders, it's the preachers, sometimes if there's a guest preacher in town, whatever the case may be, and so there are a lot of things that do not happen, or I'm sorry, that do not get talked about, that happen behind closed doors, that the general populace doesn't know about. And so, it's just, it's just one of those things. It's like, you really have to realize that these things are happening. And again, it's also about understanding the fact that, this group of people, in this church, even though we're all fellowshipping, we're all brothers and sisters, or, whatever you want to call yourselves, there is still a hierarchy. And there are still people who are going to be benefiting from your attendance, or, your offering, tithing, cash contribution, whatever you want to call it. There are still going to be people that benefit from that. And one of the things I used to think about when I was a kid was that, whenever I would my parents would give me money to put inside the collection plate, I would think that there was like this room or this shrine or something in the church, and the at the end of the service, they would go and they'd put the money in there, and it would just like rise up, to heaven, and God would take it,
and do what with it?
Exactly. But I'm just like, no, it's to keep the lights on. It's to keep the air conditioner going. It's to keep the preacher paid. Things like that. And so, there were a lot of things that I also learned, and just observed in that sense, just stepping out of it, and, just that hypocrisy. And again, as long as we are going to be humans, there are always going to be those of us who are hypocrites, because that's a very human trait, do as I say, not as I do.
Yes.
And that is something that will, it's always going to exist. And so with that being said, Erica, we're going to take our last break, and then when we come back, we're just going to just end the conversation and just talk about where we are now, from our journeys as people who have, foregone religion, and just get a little bit more into that before we close out our show. So, audience, make sure, of course, if you are still drinking your water, drinking your wine, your soda, fruit juice, vitamin water, Gatorade, I don't know, whatever. Take another drink, and we will be right back. This is Taradcast. Welcome, and welcome back, y'all, to Taradcast. Hopefully you haven't forgotten about me yet. I'm your host, Tarad Rashan, and tonight we are joined by Erica, and we're just going to talk a little bit more about what it means for us, like here and now, foregoing religion. And so one of the things that we really wanted to, or that I really wanted to touch on, Erica, is the subject of conflict, because you were telling me that you have a specific situation in mind. And so I wanted to ask you, were there any conflicts brought to you from your family? And if so, did any of your relationships change as you started to forego religion?
Yeah, so when I decided that I wanted to leave the religion, before I actually made the full transition of leaving, I met my ex-husband, who one is Pakistani and is a Muslim.
Okay.
And I remember when I married him, it was a huge conversation with my family, because it kind of made it very clear that I was no longer going down this path that I was supposed to go down. So when I think about conflict in general, there's a situation that happened the day that I got married. Like I said previously, my uncle, my dad's only brother, is an elder in the congregation to this day.
Yes.
So the day that I got married, my mom and I drove to Dallas the day before, picked up our grandparents, my father's parents, brought them to Oklahoma. I remember I had invited my cousins and, told them, like, hey, I'm getting married. It happened very quickly. I met him in May. We got married in November. It was a very, quick...
Didn't take long at all.
We didn't take long at all. But I did invite my cousins, and I invited my grandparents. And, I remember the morning of the day that I got married, we went to the courthouse, and we did at the courthouse. We didn't have, a church service. We didn't, do any of that.
Okay.
And I remember my grandpa receiving a call before we left. I remember he received a call, and it was my uncle. And he basically told him and my grandma's sister, who we also picked up, basically told them that they should not go to my wedding. Because one, I wasn't getting married to a Jehovah's Witness, and two, because I was getting married, I wasn't having basically a church service, and I was getting married at the courthouse or whatever. So my grandma and her sister were like, okay, mijo, we're not gonna go. And my grandpa, as a big FU, was like, I'm gonna go see my granddaughter get married. I don't care what you say. So my grandfather went. My cousins didn't show up. And I remember, I didn't really think anything of it because I was getting married and I was not really concerned about anything else. I do remember being a little bit upset about the fact that my grandma and her sister wasn't there. But again, I was just more concerned about the fact that I was getting married and my mom and my dad were there, and I was okay as long as they were there. So the people who actually attended were my parents, my sister, she was 2, my cousin who lived with us, and then one of my best friends, and she went as a witness.
Okay.
And you know, afterwards, my grandma and her sister went and had our lunch with us after we got married. You know, and everything was fine. But I remember that the whole situation very much rubbed me the wrong way, because I felt like my uncle was more concerned about the fact that I was marrying someone who wasn't in the religion, than actually caring about my family being there for me. And I remember that was something that really struck me. And I want to say maybe like a year ago, his son actually told me about that he got the same call.
Really?
And that was the reason why he didn't go. And he apologized for it. You know, he was like, I'm really sorry. Like, if, you know, I just listened to what he said, and, you know, and I was like, bro, I didn't even know that he had called you. I thought it was a Friday. I thought maybe he had to work. You know, I didn't really think anything of it. You know, but it definitely impacted how I saw my uncle. You know. And I've never been really close to my uncle in general, and you know, but it definitely gave me a very uneasy feeling. You know, the fact that you're willing to choose this organization that you're a part of versus your family.
Yeah.
You know, not even that. Like, if you wanted to not go, then don't go. But why did you have to call everyone else and tell them you guys should not be there either? You know, and that definitely was a huge conflict. With me, and I don't even think I told my ex-husband about it, because he would have probably had something to say. But, but you know, that definitely did rub me the wrong way, and I remember feeling some type of way about it, and that further made me want to alienate myself, not just from the religion, but also my family who were witnesses.
Yeah, it's man. You know, there were situations that happened in my family that do have a bit of a similar tone. I remember I have an uncle who, you know, he went to college and he took philosophy class, and you know, there was a period of time where he was really questioning, you know, his religious beliefs, and he stopped coming to church, and you know, things like that. You know, family members like going crazy trying to, like, you know, convince him, and it's just like, you know, and even with me as well, because I know, and I've talked about this on previous episodes, but you know, for me, I tried to like start enhancing my knowledge by like trying to study like Hebrew and stuff like that, and you know, I even had like a whole Hebrew like translated Bible, you know, that to me felt a lot closer to what the original manuscript was supposed to be. And I remember being completely shut down, because for me, I was learning, you know, like Hebrew names for, you know, like Jesus, like Yahusha, or, you know, God, Yahuwah, you know, where we get a lot of the, you know, Jehovah, and, you know, like how those things translate. And I remember just being shut down, you know, by my own family. And I literally had like this breakdown, like this religious mental breakdown in the shower. You know, like I was like curled up into a ball. Like I felt like, because I was being met with such like backlash, and I thought that I was doing something good by trying to, you know, like present this, but it's just like, you know, because of tradition, you know, it's just like they don't want it. It doesn't fit in line with the tradition. This is something extra, so we don't know what that is, therefore we're not going to accept it. You know, and so I remember like having this breakdown, like calling out to God, like, please show me something, please do something, and nothing happened. You know, and it was at that moment where I really started to like detach myself. And I was even going to a Christian school, you know, not because I wanted to go, but simply because it was convenient, because it was literally down like 10 minutes away from my house, you know. But at the same time, it's just like I really started to detach like after that. And you know, for me, it's been one of those things. It's like now that I've left religion behind, it's like I do have that Somebody's driving really fast. I do have that outside looking in perspective, and so and I feel like it would be safe to say that we both have that. And so with that being said, from our conversation, I can definitely tell that as far as where we are now, we're pretty set in our beliefs. And so like right here, right now, when you look at it from that outside looking in perspective, how do you feel about religion from your standpoint?
How I feel about religion in general, as far as religion itself, I feel like it's a very good tool to get closer to God. The only thing that I am more against of is certain practices. Because religion can become very exclusive. So it's like every single religion is like, we are the one and true religion. Anyone who's not part of this is not going to be saved.
Members only.
They're not going to heaven. They're
right.
Not, none of that is happening. And I feel like, to me, I don't like that aspect of religion. Like, I shouldn't have to be a part of an organized and ritualistic practice to be able to be close to God. And because I definitely do believe in God. I believe in spirits. I believe in demons. I believe in angels. I believe in all of that. A lot of the core things that I was taught, I do believe. But I just don't believe in, like I said, this organized part that comes with religion and that exclusivity. Right. Because you're basically saying like, well, you know what, you guys over there, and that's something that I did experience being a Jehovah's Witness. I wasn't supposed to have any friends that were not Jehovah's Witnesses. I was supposed to stick to being with people in the organization.
Yeah, so that way they can't lead you astray.
Right. As far as like dating, I was expected to marry a Jehovah's Witness,
and when that didn't happen.
And that didn't happen. So it's just, it's just interesting to me to see the things that I do believe in now that came from my upbringing in the religion, but how I've basically learned how to apply it for myself versus it being used as a tool to keep me in control. If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. It makes perfect sense. And just thinking about that, I wanted to ask, because that actually leads me into my next question, because are there let me say it like this. Do you ever have, now that you're out of it, do you ever have like those little like twinges of, oh my God, what I'm doing is a sin? Like, do you still have like those little, like for a second, you're like, like that flash of guilt or that flash of fear, where it's just like, oh my God, I might be going to hell. But then you're like, wait a minute, I don't care. Like, do you still have that? Because I know I do sometimes.
Oh yeah, I definitely have those moments. Because I think about, religion has like an undercurrent of fear in its teachings. About concepts like sin, divine judgment, God's wrath, and eternal punishment. So I definitely have these moments where I'm laying in bed in the middle of the night and I have this moment of panic where I'm like, oh my God, what if I die tonight? Yeah. And I have this all wrong. And what if what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And I definitely do have these moments where not necessarily that I doubt myself, because it's not that, it's just these things have been ingrained in me from the time that I was a child, that I still have these fears, and like you said, it usually lasts a couple seconds, and then I snap out of it. And I don't know what, and I feel like that's very normal. Yeah. And I feel like that's also a very big part of indoctrination. Yes. Because, the main purpose of that is to, ingrain it into your children's head that, If you do anything that they do anything that they're not supposed to be doing, you're going to be punished. You're going to go to hell if you don't repent in time.
Right.
You know, God's wrath is going to come get you. And, you know, even as an adult, like I said, I'm 30 years old.
Right.
And I definitely do still have these moments where I'm like, oh my God,
No, and I get it, because like, and honestly, I was a kid having these thoughts like before I went to sleep. Like I'd find myself like crying sometimes because if I like disobeyed my parents, I'm like, I don't want to go to hell, you know, like. You know, but it's crazy because like that fear. I mean, I understand like fear is a tool to try and keep people in line. But you know what? Like, what if? Think about it in the sense of like training an animal. You know, you train an animal to fear you. One day, that animal's gonna fly off the hinges and attack you.
Right.
You know, and it's like, do you really want to lead with fear? And that's, you know, just a lot of the things that we were saying earlier is because like a lot of people who consider themselves leaders or authority figures in whatever religion, they lead with, they don't lead with love. They lead with fear. They lead with, I have some sort of divine power that has been appointed to me that will show you or tell you what you need to be doing or where you need to be going.
Right. And I definitely feel like a lot of these teachings can definitely create a mental environment that is burdened, and it's like ridden in anxiety.
Yeah.
And you question your worthiness and whether your actions are going to result in like divine retribution.
Yes.
And I'm talking about not even like big actions. It could be something minor, something very, you accidentally like steal something, you know, you accidentally put it in your pocket and you walk out of the store. And
that's happened to me.
That's happened to me too.
Look, I'm like, look, y'all can't prove this, but there was a situation where there was a t-shirt on my shoulder and I was just walking around Walmart so casually, walked straight out. And I was just like, but this is actually like me being out of religion. But I thought of that moment, and I'm like, if I would have been, you know, still in it, like that would have like haunted me, because I didn't have the discernment or just the wherewithal to know that this shirt was on my shoulder. And so I just committed this sin that I didn't even know I committed. And now that I know I committed it, you know, I'm like, what am I gonna do? I guess I'm going straight to hell. Here comes a lightning strike, you know? And it's like, it's crazy because it's just like that fear is so strong when it comes to indoctrination.
Definitely.
And that anxiety that you talked about. I'm like, yes, that is a very real thing.
Very real. And it's like with every little thing, your fate, like, it looms in the back of your mind. You know, like, it influences your thoughts and your behaviors and just how you see certain things, you know. And even as an adult, like I said, there's just certain things that, you know, like if I'm not married anymore, you know, and
y'all hear that?
And you know, whenever I got divorced, you know, it was kind of like, am I expected to just not have any like sexual feelings anymore because it's a sin? And then I was kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah,
like,
you got to check yourself on that.
Like, wait, that does not make any sense. But I feel like for a couple seconds I reverted back to that thinking. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be having premarital sex, or, you know, I mean, I was already married, but, you know, like, I'm going to be, you know, and I definitely did revert back to that thinking very, like, for a very small amount of time. And then, you know, and like I said, like we discussed, it's just something that just came with the teachings, you know, that we were taught. And fortunately, it's something that I feel like it's always going to affect us. I feel like it might be a little bit less the older we get, but it's definitely always going to be there in the back of our minds. I
agree, because again, it's like those little moments. It's like I have to like stop myself, because like, you know, for at least 22, 23 years of my life, you know, this was something that was immensely important to me. And now it's just like, being on the outside of it and just seeing everything. It's this slow but yet gradual unlearning process, and so, it's one of those things where, again, when we take time to think about what it is that we're experiencing and really use our own minds as opposed to, blindly going here or going there or believing in this, but, just actually taking time to think critically about what it is we've experienced and also who it is that we've encountered, through those experiences. That's what's going to give us the frame of mind and the frame of reference to actually start making more informed decisions about what we give our time and attention to. And so with that being said, one of the last things I want to talk to you about was, if you knew of someone who is, currently going through, the same or similar situation, like what you've gone through in your journey out of religion, what would you tell them to make them feel understood?
I would tell them that it's okay to question. It's okay to have doubts. It's okay to try to find something that speaks to you. Like, I have come out of this and I've found my path to spirituality, and I definitely, like I said, I do believe in God. I do believe in,
somebody had to make all this.
Right, everything that's divine. I do believe in that, but I apply it to my life very differently. And I feel like if that's a path that you want to take or that you want to explore, you should be able to do that, because a lot of the teachings of spirituality are very much based off of what religion is. It's, like I said, just applied differently. Right. So religion might not be for you. Religion might just be something that you use the base of, and make it your own. Yes. And that's okay. You're gonna get a lot of backlash, of course. But with everything good, there's always that little bit of bad that comes with it, and I feel like it's definitely worth, being able to find yourself, whatever that means to you. And just do what you need to do to make you whole for you and for yourself only, regardless of what your family might say, regardless of what your friends might say. Yes. At the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. You have to be able to live with yourself, in peace. So, just do what feels right. Like I said, you're gonna get backlash, but do what feels right to you.
I definitely agree with that message. And, just to go along with that, never stop learning, from any and every situation, from any and every person that you come across. Never stop learning. Get to know more about yourself and the things that really impact you. And, like I was saying before, again, every one of us holds at least one truth. And so if you can find out at least one truth from any person, you can apply that to your life in a way that will allow you to benefit and move forward as a better, more knowledgeable, more well-rounded person. And so, I definitely do appreciate what you just said, just making sure that that we know it's okay to question, it's okay to doubt, because those are very human things. We can't just automatically turn off those things inside of us that cause us to want to question or to want to really know the ins and outs of something. That's natural. We are very, I believe humans aren't innately good or bad, but we're innately curious. And so we want to know what things are. And so, never lose sight. Like Miss Frizzle said on Magic School Bus, what'd she say? Get messy or something like that. It was a phrase. Why am I forgetting? Take chances, make mistakes, get messy. Yeah, and I'm just like, but that's so true. So just knowing that you can do that, and then also coupling that with just taking a moment to just evaluate and really, look into those things and make sure you do take something from it. So with that being said, y'all, we have actually reached the end of our show. And Erica, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And before we close out our show, I wanted to ask, is there anything that you'd like to say in closing to our listeners? It could be anything you want.
I'm just really excited that we got to do this. You guys listen to the broadcast. He is the best.
Oh God, don't make me blush. Don't do it.
Every single podcast I've listened to yours, I've absolutely loved.
Thank you.
So I recommend it to everyone. Oh, God. When this comes out, I'm going to send it to everyone I know. I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to listen to everything else that he has put out because everything is just great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And Erica, I want to also give you the ability to plug yourself. So if people would like the opportunity to keep up with you and follow you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's probably the best place to find me. Mm-hmm. And my username is _, ERICITA, _.
Okay, well, that's fancy. That's fancy. I like that.
It's my nickname.
Oh, okay. Is it Ericita? Eriquita. Yeah. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. See, I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
On the ethos, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, Erica, I really do appreciate that, and we're definitely going to make sure we put this information in our show notes, so that way if people want to jumpstart their way and follow you and keep up with you, they definitely can. And y'all, thank you all so much for listening. As you all know, you know how to find us, you know how to support us. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and you can also take this conversation on Throne. The links, just like everything else, are in the show notes. Now, wherever you are, whomever you are, I want to always encourage you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are, trust in who you are, and most importantly, love who you are. Listeners, audience, all of you, thank you for listening. Erica, thank you for being here. Of course. And I hope that every one of you make every effort to find and keep your peace. Till next time.